हाँ तो भाई लोग, आज पुर्तगाली भाई ने कुछ बहुत ही क्रेजी स्क्रिप्ट लिखी है। और पुर्तगाली भाई का ये कहना है कि इनकी ये स्क्रिप्ट बिल्कुल अमेरिकन बड़े बड़े राइटर्स से मैच खाती है।
अरे
ये कह रहे हैं कि
बेंच।
इनकी अगर ये इस पे पिक्चर बनाएंगे तो वो इंडिया की पहली $1 बिलियन पिक्चर हो सकती है। और
तो पहले
ऐसे
इनिशियल थॉट्स
बिल्कुल
लेते हैं पुर्तगाली भाई के। इनिशियल
हाँ,
थॉट्स
ये
तो भाई
बिल्कुल
पुर्तगाली
सही
यार
भाई।
इनिशियल थॉट्स तो ये हैं कि यार मुझे एक आइडिया आया। उस आइडिया के बाद फिर मैंने वो सोचा। उसे सोचने में मुझे लग गए बहुत दिन। चीजें बैठाने में कब कौन सी बात आएगी या कौन सा कैरेक्टर क्या होगा या फिर बहुत सारी चीजें लगी। उसके बाद फिर मैंने लिखा इसको रगड़ के टाइम लेके पूरा। लिखने के बाद फिर अब ये तैयार हो चुका है और मैंने किसी को नहीं दिखाया है इसे अभी तक। तो ये पहली बार होगा कि मेरे अलावा कोई इसे पढ़ेगा, देखेगा, समझेगा
चाटेगा।
और फील करेगा। चाटेगा चाट सकते हो।
पर फील करेगा।
बेसिकली मैं कह रहा हूँ बेसिकली आप इंसेप्शन लेवल राइटिंग अगर आपको नहीं
अरे
मिली तो आप
नहीं
बुरा
यार। हाँ एक चीज और इसमें कुछ ऐसा
अच्छा, तो
बहुत माइंड
दिलवाले की
ब्लोइंग।
स्क्रिप्ट है ये। ऑलराइट।
या दिल वाले लेवल एक्सपेक्ट करना, इंसेप्शन मत करना। बहुत सिंपल है
नहीं
चीजें,
नहीं, इंसेप्शन
ज्यादा कुछ।
इंसेप्शन ही ये तो अंडरसेल
हाँ,
कर रहा है। इससे पहले तो ये बोल रहा था कि नोलन वोलन इस जो पानी कम चाय है इसके
अबे,
सामने, तो
पानी
3
कम
मिनट में
चाय।
शुरू होगा। हाँ, चाय कम पानी, पानी कम चाय है, नोलन वोलन।
हम्म।
और इसने वो भी लगाया है, वो रूल ऑफ थर्ड, थर्ड ऑफ रूल, वो भी 3-4 चीजें
अरे
लगाई है।
राइटिंग में कैसे लगा दूंगा तू रूल ऑफ थर्ड।
गोल्डन रूल लगाया, गोल्डन रेशियो में लिखा है इसने।
चलो
और ये उसमें
सिनेमेटोग्राफी
भी
कौन सी
वो
करी है
सिनेमैटिक
राइटिंग।
एस्पेक्ट
नरेटर
रेशियो।
इंट्रोड्यूस कर दो। नरेटर कौन है?
नरेटर है जी सॉस भाई।
हाँ, जीसस
नरेटर
भाई,
इज
जिन्होंने पहले भी
द
बहुत
वन
चीजें की
हु
है।
शैल नेवर बी सीन।
हाँ, जीसस भाई हमारे महफिल के ओमपुरी मान सकते हो आप।
डार्कर
नेवर
देन
बी
द
सीन इन
कलर
द अर्थ।
ब्लैक है। डार्कर देन द कलर ब्लैक।
यस।
चलो अब हो
यस।
जाओ
पेंटा ब्लैक
सारे
है ये।
म्यूट। ये म्यूट या शांत हो जाओ सारे। जी सर
2 मिनट। जीसस
कारवाही।
भाई 8:30 पे रीडिंग, 8:30 होते ही रीडिंग स्टार्ट कर देना, उसके बाद फिर मत रुकना।
ना
ठीक
ना
है।
अब करी दो
इसका सर
2 मिनट
रुकना
में
मत।
क्या
अच्छा,
कोई
2
नहीं आ
मिनट
रहा।
डेड साइलेंस
स्टार्ट ही
रखोगे।
करो, टाइम
स्टार्ट करो
वेस्ट मत करो।
स्टार्ट।
और
किंग्समैन
क्या
थाला
स्टार्ट
योग।
करो।
अरे
कोई नहीं,
म्यूजिक
अब
मान लो
लोग जो
उसके बीच
आएगा
में,
देखने
ऑर्गेजम
रिकॉर्ड
आएगा
तो
तो
कर ही रहे हैं
ऑन
ना।
कर सकते हैं।
मैं कह रहा हूँ रिकॉर्ड तो कर ही रहे हैं और फिर देख लेंगे बाद में, कोई दिक्कत नहीं है।
अरे
चलो स्टार्ट करो।
ओके,
ये मतलब माइक ही
करता हूँ।
म्यूट ही कर लेना जब तक नरेटर पढ़ रहा
हाँ
है तो।
म्यूट कर लो, हाँ नॉइस वॉइस आएगी
हाँ
तो।
विदित
निशाल भाई।
के
यस।
बैकग्राउंड नॉइस।
विजिट
और
क्या करा
निशाल
दो
भाई
पहले,
धीरे
सबसे
धीरे।
पहले विजिट का करा दो।
हाँ मैं ये कह रहा था
अरे
धीरे
मैं
धीरे
भी
स्क्रॉल
अकेला
करना।
हूँ, फॉर्चुनेटली मैं अकेला हूँ।
हाँ हाँ,
नहीं
वेट
म्यूट
वेट
बढ़िया
कर,
है।
वेट
नहीं 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 नहीं, म्यूट
सुनो
कर
सुनो
म्यूट कर।
सुनो एक चीज और। मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि धीरे धीरे स्क्रॉल करना, है ना, क्योंकि स्पॉइलर आ सकते हैं फोटो वोटो।
अरे
तो
बाप रे।
ठीक है।
तो शुरू कर दो भाई।
अच्छा।
काफी
अब
लंबा
मैंने
इंट्रो हो
कर दी
चुका
है
है।
बहुत ज्यादा हाइप।
हाँ
अब चुदने के आसार बहुत है। चलो स्टार्ट कर दो।
ना ना ना,
वो
कोई
क्या
नहीं
बोला
बोला अभी।
तुमने, वो लैरी क्रॉक, लैरी कॉर्च, उसकी सिनेमेटोग्राफी भी हो।
रॉक।
लेरी
चलो
क्रोच।
चलो।
अरे
चलो
स्टार्ट
मैं
करता
डाल
हूँ,
दिया
ठीक
कि
है।
अब स्टार्ट हो गया, अब मत आना। स्टार्ट।
स्टार्ट। सो हियर वी गो। और मुझे प्लीज मेंशन ना करें अभी, फिलहाल के लिए।
ओके।
So here it starts. The Inferno of Grief by our Rohit, also known as Portugali. Chapter 1, Bond. 12th century Europe. Amidst a sprawling, windswept meadow, the grass swayed gently in the breeze as two brothers lay side by side, their gazes fixed on the vast canvas above. There was Jacob, the elder brother, 23-year-old, and Alan, the youngest of the kin, 11 years old. Breaking the comfortable silence, Jacob turned his head slightly. Alan, he softly asked, what do you truly want to do with your life? Alan didn't look away from the clouds. I want to travel, Jacob, he replied instantly. I want to see everything. Jacob offered a gentle smile. And where would you wish to go first? Alan lifted his hand, pointing a finger straight up towards the azure expanse. There! Jacob squinted, confusion clouding his face. The sky? You want to go to the clouds? No, Alan said, his voice dropping to the whispers filled with intensity. I want to go beyond the sky, to those worlds where no one has ever set foot before. Alan, what are you saying? Jacob asked, concerned. I know, Alan sighed, finally looking at his brother. I know it sounds impossible to you that there are other worlds apart from ours. You aren't the first person I've told. I tried telling my friends, but they just laughed. They made a mockery of me. Alan looked back up, his eyes shining with conviction. But I believe it. I know that beyond that blue veil, there are other worlds just like this one. And when Rose gets better, when she's well again, I will go there one day. I swear it. Jacob watched his younger brother, seeing the fire in his eyes. He smiled warmly. I believe you, Alan. I believe in your words. He paused and then added, if you do go to these places, may I travel with you? A burst of pure joy lit up Alan's face. He threw his arms around Jacob in a tight embrace. You have to come with me, Alan laughed, holding his brothers close. Otherwise, who's going to look after me? You are my partner after all. Just then, a voice boomed from behind them. It was Henry, their middle brother, 17-year-old, shouting over the wind. Hey Jacob, it's time for dinner. Let's head home. The three brothers fell into step, making their way back towards their house. As they walked, Henry's cheerful demeanor faded. He lowered his voice, speaking to Jacob with concern. Jacob, Rose hasn't eaten anything since this morning. She didn't take her medicines today. Either her face has gone completely pale. Jacob felt a cold knot of anxiety tighten in his chest. But he hid his worry behind a calm expression. He says, don't worry, he said steadily. I will just take some time. She's going to be completely fine. Before they could reach the house, a villager called out from the roadside. Hey, Jacob, could you lend me a hand? My horse cart is stuck in the ditch. Of course, why not? Jacob replied instantly. He turned to his younger brothers. You too, go straight home and help mother. I will be there in a little while. Alan and Henry nodded and hurried. The villager watched them go and shook his head doubtfully. You should have kept them for here to help Jacob. The cart is overloaded. There is too much weight for just one man. Don't worry, Jacob replied with quiet confidence. He stepped up to the cart, planted his feet, and he lifted the heavy carriage out of the rut and set it firmly back into the road. The villagers stared, stunned by the display of raw power. Thank you, Jacob, he said, clearly impressed. But listen to me, you really should reconsider hunting you are young. Your father and grandfather were great hunters. You have the intelligence, the strength, and the bravery. Be just like them. The man gestured to the pile of dead wild animals on the back of his cart. Look at this, Jacob. Do you have any idea how much coin I will get selling this into the city? He pressed on, insisting that Jacob was wasting his talents and should take up the family legacy. But as he had done many times before, Jacob politely just firmly refused, turning to head home. Traded. The man called out, But why? Just give me an answer. Jacob paused and looked back, a faint, gentle smile touching his lips. The reason is very simple, my friend. I have told you many times. Though I know you won't understand, I don't want to I don't want the blood of the innocents on my hand. Jacob said softly, I'm very happy just being a farmer. With that, Jacob walked away, leaving the hunter staring in silence. Jacob reached home and went straight to his mother. Has Rose eaten anything? His mother, her eyes hollow and weary, ignored the question. Dinner is served, she said dully. Come and sit. The family gathered around the table, but the plates remained untouched. The silence in the room was suffocating, heavy with tension and unspoken grief. Finally, his mother could bear it no longer. Her voice broke, hopeless and trembling. Jacob, your sister's condition is getting worse. The medicines are no longer working on her. She buried her face in her hands and began to weep. Jacob moved to her side, offering words of comfort, assuring her that everything would be all right. But inside, he was crumbling. He felt like he was shattering into pieces, forced to watch his sister fade away before his eyes, while he stood by, helpless. Tears pricked his own eyes. Before they could fall, he grabbed a plate of food and quickly excused himself to his grandmother's room. His grandmother, now very old and frail, lay on bed. Hearing footsteps, she whispered, Is that you, Jacob? Yes, grandmother, he replied, his voice thick with emotion. I brought you dinner. She sensed the heaviness in his tone immediately. Jacob, everything will be fine, son. That was the breaking point. Jacob fell to his knees beside her bed and wept, confessing how powerless he felt. Grandmother reached out and touched the silver ring hanging around Jacob's neck. Your grandfather put this ring on you when you were born, she said softly. The lion carved upon it represents bravery and strength. You cannot fall weak now, my son. But what I can do, Jacob sobbed. Find the fox, she whispered. Jacob looked up, confusion washing over his tears. Streak-faced. What? When your grandfather was young, she began, her eyes distant. He lived in Greenwood Vale. He used to hunt in those dense ancient forests. He had lost the first two fingers of his right hand in a hunting accident. Yet, he remained an extraordinary archer. She took a deep breath and continued. One day, while tracking prey, he ventured deeper into the forest than even before he was alone. Suddenly, he saw it, a three-headed golden fox. It was entirely golden, shimmering with a magical aura. He was stunned. He had never seen such a divine entity. When the creature approached him, he reached out and touched it. Grandmother looked deep into Jacob's eyes. In that instant, his severed fingers grew back. He couldn't believe his eyes. And just as quickly as it had appeared, the fox vanished. Grandmother, Jacob said, shaking his head. What are you saying? That's just a story. Slowly, she opened the locket. around her neck and pulled out the single shimmering golden hair. She placed it gently over a scar on Jacob's hand. Instantly, the skin knitted together. The scar vanished without a trace. Jacob stared at his hand, his eyes widened in shock. Then the shock turned into something else. Hope. This is your only chance to save Rose, grandmother said firmly. You know she cannot survive on those medicines much longer. Go to Greenwood. Find the fox. It will change your life and save your sister. The next morning, Jacob didn't waste a moment. He began packing his bag, his movements fueled by newfound purpose. Before leaving, he stood by Rose's bed, watching her sleep, a silent promise in his heart. I heard everything. Jacob spun around. Alan was standing there, dressed and ready. I heard that grandmother told you I want to go to Greenwood with you. Jacob moved to hush him. No, Alan, you cannot. It's too dangerous. But if you are with me, Alan said, looking up at his big brother, then I don't need to be afraid of anything. Jacob asked to Alan's determination and nodded. All right, get your things. As they reached the door, Henry stepped out of his room, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Brother, where are you two going? Jacob pulled Henry close, keeping his voice low as not to wake their mother. Henry, listen to me. You are the most responsible for us all. This is the last chance we have to save Rose. Where are you going, Jacob? Henry asked, his face falling. I can't tell you that, Jacob. I can't tell you that. Jacob replied, I need you to be strong. Stronger than you've ever been. Promise me something, Henry. Until I return, you must take care of the family. You are the protector now. Mother is still sleeping. You have to handle these things. Here. Henry looked at his brother. He straightened up, accepting the responsibility. I will. With a final nod, Jacob and Alan turned and walked out the door, heading toward the horizon. Where the dark, mysterious tree line of the Greenwood Vale awaited them. Jacob and Alan walked for hours, but as the sun began to dip below the horizon, the shadows lengthened, and exhaustion set in. Jacob, Alan panted, wiping sweat from his brow. We cannot go any further tonight. We have to stop. Jacob looked at his younger brother, tired face, and nodded. Yeah, you're right. Just then, the rumble of wheels echoed in the distance. A horse cart was approaching. Jacob stepped into the road, waving his arms. Hey, stop! We need help! The car slowed to a halt. As the driver leaned forward, Jacob's face lit up with recognition. It was the same villager he had helped earlier that day. You? The man looked at them, bewildered. It's nearly dark. What are you two doing out here, near the jungle? We are heading to the Greenwood Vale, Jacob explained. Can you give us a ride? The man's face went pale. He made a sign to ward off evil. That place is cursed. It's no place for children, nor a man. Jacob stepped closer, his voice serious. Will you take us or not? The man hesitated, then sighed. I won't go near the well, but I am heading to the city. I can drop you there, and you can find your way from the gates. Deal, Jacob said. They climbed into the back, but Alan immediately covered his nose and mouth. The stench of the dead game was overpowering. The hunter laughed. Don't mind the smell, boy. The stench is just going to turn into gold coins soon. Just ignore it and sleep. Jacob pulled Alan close, letting the boy rest his head on his lap. Alan eventually drifted off, but Jacob remained wide awake. The hunter chattered endlessly through the night, but Jacob did one thing: finding the fox. The vision. By the time the cart rattled into the city, the sun was rising. Wake up, Jacob. We are here, the hunter announced. Jacob hopped down. He reached into his pocket to pay, but the man stopped him. Keep your coin, boy. Just give me a hand unloading those beasts, and we are square. Jacob agreed. He hauled the heavy carcasses off the cart, his muscles straining. Finally finished. He wiped the sweat and grime from his eyes with his forearm. But when he opened his eyes, the city was gone. He was standing in a vast, dark maroon field. The ground was flooded with ankle-deep water that rippled silently. In the distance, jagged black mountains pierced the sky, surrounded by the withered skeletal trees. He looked up and froze. There were 2 moons hanging in the sky. Panic began to rise in his chest. Then, a soft, haunting female voice whispered into his ears. Find me. Jacob gasped, his eyes snapping open. The vision shattered, and he was back in the bustling city street. Disoriented, he took a step back and slipped into the wet cobblestones. Before he could hit the ground, the strong hand caught him by the arm. Steady yourself, Jacob. Jacob regained his balance and turned. Standing there was a young man, perhaps 25. He was tall, nearly 6 feet, with long black hair falling into his shoulders. But it was his face that was striking. It held an unnatural, ethereal glow. How do you know my name? Jacob asked, confused. The stranger smiled, but the expression didn't reach his eyes. Before he could answer, a blood-curdling scream tore through the air. Ah! It was Alan. Jacob sprinted to the cart, where Alan was withered to the ground. The boy's mouth was wide. The boy's mouth was wide open in a silent scream, veins bulging in his neck. His eyes were wide, glowing with a blinding blue light. Alan! Jacob grabbed him, shaking him. Alan gasped, the light fading from his eyes as he collapsed into Jacob's arm. He blinked, dazed, and whispered, "Find her!" "What?" Jacob asked, terrified. Alan burst into tears, clinging to his brother. It was just a nightmare. A horrible nightmare. Excuse me. The soft voice returned. The stranger with the long hair approached them. My name is Alexander. What do you want? Jacob snapped, pointed to his brother. Nothing. Alexander said calmly. He held out his hand. In his palm lay the silver lion ring. I believe this is yours. It fell from your neck when you slept. It is unusual for people to wear a ring on a chain rather than on a finger. Jacob blew into the ring, his hand tremblingly slightly. Thank you. In my family, we wear it close to the heart. Alexander's lips curled into a slow, knowing smile. A child ran down Jacob's spine. Come on, Alan. We are leaving. They hurried out of the city, leaving the strange man behind. As they walked toward the tree line of Grimwood, Jacob noticed Alan's silence. The boy looked traumatized, his face pale. Alan? Jacob gently asked. What did you see? Alan stopped walking. He looked down at his feet. Death, he whispered. Whose death? Everyone's. Alan choked out. I saw people frozen in red snow. There was a fire, a massive fire, and 2 people were burning in it. Above them there were 2 moons. Jacob froze. 2 moons, just like his vision. And there was a girl. Alan continued, tears spilling over. She was in a small cage, screaming for help. But I couldn't move. I didn't save them, Jacob. I watched them burn. Alan fell to his knees, sobbing. I'm a coward, Jacob. I'm just a coward. I cannot do this. Jacob stared at him for a moment. The pity in his chest vanished, replaced by urgency. He then grabbed Alan by his shoulders and shook him hard. Stop it, Jacob shouted, his voice cutting through Alan's panic. Snap out of it. Crying isn't going to change anything. Alan's sob quitted to sniffles. He looked up, startled by his brother's anger. We don't know how much time Rosa has, Jacob said fiercely. She could leave this world at any moment. We do not have the luxury of wasting time on fear. But I'm weak, Alan whispered, his voice trembling. I want to be like you, Jacob, but I am not brave. Out of all of us brothers, I'm the weakest. Jacob's expression softened. He reached up and unclasped the chain from his own neck, the one holding the silver lion ring. You are not weak, Jacob said firmly. You are brave, Alan, braver than even me. I believe in you. He placed the chain around Alan's neck. The silver lion rested against the boy's chest. Alan looked down at the ring, then up at his brother. He wiped his tears with his sleeve. A new fire ignited into his eyes. Not of fear, but of resolve. Okay, Alan said, taking a deeper breath. We have to find the damn fox. Come on! Chapter 2, Vial. 2 days passed as Jacob and Alan walked, the road stretching endlessly before them. Jacob's mind was a whirlwind of questions, his gaze drifting often to Alan, replaying the boy's terrified account of the vision. As the evening fell, they finally reached their destination, the outskirts of the Grimwood Vale. It was an ancient settlement, far smaller and more desolate than the villages they had passed. But the first thing that hit them was the cold. It was unnatural. Despite the season being summer, a biting chill gnawed at their bones. I am starving, Jacob, Alan murmured. Shivering as they walked through the silent streets, they approached a house and knocked. A beautiful woman opened the door, but her expression was hard. Please, Jacob implored. Can you please help us? We need a place to stay and something to eat. Her eyes flashed with anger. We have nothing here. Outsiders are forbidden. She slammed the door in their faces. Around them, villagers peered from windows with hostile glares before shutting their shutters tight. Darkness swallowed their street, and the unnatural cold intensified. Jacob stood there, baffled. Why is it freezing in the middle of the summer? Mr. Jacob? A familiar voice called out. It seems you need my help once again. Jacob spun around. It was the man from the city, Alexander, sitting atop his horse cart. Why are you following us? Jacob demanded, his temper flaring. You misunderstood, Alexander said smoothly. This is my home. I live here. If you stay on the street on this cold, you won't survive the night. You are welcome to stay with me. Jacob looked at shivering Alan, then sighed, his anger deflating. I'm sorry. I shouldn't have snapped at you, Mr. Alexander. But call me Alex. Okay, Alex. They followed him to his house. It was a decrepit structure that looked as if it had survived a great fire years ago. The wood was charred and blackened. Wait here, Alex said. I will prepare something for you. Jacob and Alan washed up, the water freezing against their skin. Jacob glanced out the window. Behind the house lay the dense, ominous expansion of the forest. How big is that jungle, Alex? Jacob asked. Bigger than your imagination, Alex replied from the kitchen. Even I don't venture too deep. The cold, it becomes unbearable. What about your family? Jacob asked suddenly. There was a pause. They are all dead, Alex said faintly. When I was a boy, my entire family burned to death in this house. He turned, holding a box of raw meat, a dead chicken and a pig. What would you like? Jacob stared at the meat, uncomfortable. Alan spoke up politely. We are vegetarians, sir. My apologies, Alex said, putting the box away. I didn't realize. Would bread suffice? Yes, bread is fine, Jacob said quickly. Alex served him bread and sat down to eat the same plain meal himself. You don't have to eat bread on your account, Jacob offered. If you want the meat, no matter, Alex smiled faintly. I will have bread tonight. After the meal, Alex showed them the room. Exhausted, Alan curled up next to Jacob and fell asleep instantly. Jacob drifted into a restless sleep. Find me. Chapter 3 Ashes. The whisper echoed in his ears, sharp and demanding. Jacob's eyes snapped open. He gasped. The room was gone, or rather, the illusion was gone. He was lying on bare dirt. The house was a burnt out shell, covered in thick cobwebs and ash. He looked beside him. Alan was gone. Alan! Jacob scrambled up, running to Alex's room. On the bed lay a human skeleton, old and dusty. He burst out of the house. The entire village was a ruin. Tattered bones littered the streets, and the snow was falling heavily now. Alan! Jacob screamed. Where are you? A faint cry answered him from the direction of the forest. Jacob didn't think. He ran. He sprinted into the tree line, chasing the voice of ours. The deeper he went, the colder it got, the air turning into ice in his lungs. His legs burned, but he pushed on until he burst into the clearing, a vast field of snow. In the distance, he saw a small body lying on the white ground. Alan! Jacob sprinted on him, but as he dropped to his knees, his soul shattered. Alan was naked, shivering violently. Blood stained the snow around him. His fingers had been severed from his wounds. But the worst of all, his eyes were gone. Empty, bleeding sockets stared up at the sky. Jacob, Alan whimpered, his voice trembling with agony. Panic, raw and consuming, seized Jacob. He ripped off his own clothes and draped over his brother's freezing body. Tears streamed down his face as he scrolled Alan's into his arms. I've got you, Jacob sobbed, stubbing through his deep snow. I've got you. He slipped, falling hard onto the ice. Jacob, are you okay? Are you there? Jacob, are you there? Alan cried out, blind and terrified. I'm here, Alan. I'm here. As Jacob tried to stand, something caught his eye. Sitting on the snow nearby was a strange object, a metal spherical cage, engraved with the intricate, ornate patterns. Inside, a core of fire-like energy pulsed, leaking dark red smoke. It felt alive, malevolent. Jacob felt a sudden, overpowering urge to touch it. The pull was magnetic, irresistible. Jacob, Alan called out, his voice desperate. Jacob didn't hear him. The world narrowed down to that glowing sphere. He reached out, his hand trembling, and his fingers brushed the metal. Whoosh! Instantly, his hand ignited. The fire didn't burn his skin. It became his skin. In seconds, the flames roared up his arm and engulfed his entire body. Jacob screamed, the pain tearing him from his trance. The sound of his agony ripped through his silent forest. Jacob! Jacob! What's happening? Alan screamed in panic. The screaming stopped. Jacob knelt in the snow, transformed. His skin now has charred and fissured like cooling lava, with glowing magma lines pulsing beneath the surface. Flames rose from his hands, flickering with restless energy. His eyes are no longer human, they burn with the intense molten glow. He was blind to the world, overwhelmed by the power coursing through him. Alan, sensing his brother nearby, dragged himself forward. Jacob! Jacob, are you okay? Jacob, his senses overwhelmed, couldn't hear him properly. He saw a blur of movement and instantly tried to go back to warn him. But Alan reached out. His hand touched Jacob's arm. No! Jacob's mind screamed, but it was too late. Alan's body caught fire instantly. He collapsed, breathing in the snow. Jacob! Alan shrieked. It burns! Save me! Please, save me! Jacob watched in horror, paralyzed. He couldn't touch him. He couldn't hold him. If he tried, he would only burn him faster. He was helpless. Alan's lower body was already vanished. Jacob fell to his knees, tears of molten magma streaming down his face, burning the snow beneath him. Suddenly, Alan stopped screaming. The pain seemed to fade, replacing by a strange calm. He turned his eyes, less face, towards the sky. He smiled. Jacob, he whispered, I guess you have to go beyond the sky alone now, partner. No, Jacob begged, his voice a guttural roar of fire and grief. No, no, Alan, don't leave me. I love you, brother, Alan breathed. And then his body crumbled into ash. Jacob stared at the pile of grey dust that was once his little brother. A scream built up in his chest, a sound of pure, unadulterated suffering. Alan! No. He unleashed a roar that shook the earth. Flames exploded from his body, a massive wave of fire that swept across the frozen field, reaching up to lick the very heavens he had once promised he would explore together. The terrifying flames radiating from the Jacobs didn't just scorch the ground, they painted the sky. To the rest of the world it looked as if the heavens themselves had torn apart. In vibrant, unnatural colors. Far away, at the door of a humble farmhouse, Henry stepped out, gazing up at the apocalyptic sky with dread. Henry, his mother called out from outside, her voice frail. When will Jacob and Alan return? It has been so many days. Henry's heart clenched. He gripped the door frame, whispering into the wild. Where are you two? Where are you? Back in the decimated forest, Jacob sat in silence. The fire around him had calmed, but the fire inside him was permanent. He stared at the pile of ash that had used to be his brother. From the shadows of the trees, a creature emerged. It was the three-headed golden fox, the legend, the cure. the very thing they had risked everything for. It stood there, waiting to be captured, waiting to be granted a wish. Jacob looked at it with dead, molten eyes. He felt nothing, no desire, no hope. He turned his face away from the beast and lake. He turned his face away from the beast and looked at the sky. Slowly he stood. With a burst of energy, he launched himself upward. He tore through the atmosphere, piercing the clouds, leaving the earth behind. He didn't look back. He flew past the moon, past the planets, faster and faster until the snow was just a star in the distance. He reached the very edge of the Milky Way, stopping only where the light of home faded into the crushing silence of the void. Before him lay a massive black hole, its gravity tugging at him, inviting him into endless darkness. Jacob floated there, alone, no home, no family, just the grief burning in his chest, the origin of the curse, as the black hole tugged at him. The voice returned, clearer than ever. Find me! Find me!
चलो सारे म्यूट हो जाओ.
Okay. Chapter 4, Cage. Jacob's vision blurred. The darkness of space was replaced by a lush, vibrant jungle. He was an observer in a memory. He saw a woman sitting by a riverbank, bathing. She was beautiful. A man approached her, holding a baby in his arms. The woman laughed. Splashing water, her family whole and happy. But Jacob couldn't hear their words. He looked up in the sky of the world. There were 2 moons. Suddenly, a streak of fire cut through a sky. A meteor crashed near the river. Jacob ran toward it, but the woman was faster. She approached the crater. Inside lay the sphere, the same cursed object Jacob had touched. He reached out. Don't! Jacob screamed. But he was a ghost to her. She touched it. She didn't turn. Instead, she twisted. Her skin turned pale white. Her hair fell out. Her ears elongated and pointed. Horrifyingly, her eyes vanished from her face and reappeared inside her ears, glowing with a purple-blue light. Glowing with a bright blue light. A red jelly-like visor formed over her eye sockets, and glowing red veins spread across her forehead like roots. She screamed, looking at her reflection in the water. The king rushed to her, horrified. The vision shifted. Jacob was now standing in a vast square. A massive bonfire roared in the center, its flames licking the sky. The king stood with the child, arguing desperately with a mob of angry subjects. Nearby, the transformed queen was trapped in a square metal cage, sobbing and reaching out to her husband. I am the king of this planet, the man shouted. I command you to release her. She has angered the gods, the mob leaders spat back. Ever since she touched the sphere, calamity has struck. We have never known cold before. Yet now we freeze. She is a witch. She is innocent, the king pleaded. It is a curse, not her choice. She and the spear must burn in the holy fire, the mob declared. Two men using long iron rods to toss the glowing sphere into the roaring fire. Then they turned into the king. Ignoring his screams, they grabbed him and the baby. No! Jacob shouted. They threw the king and the child into the fire first. The queen screamed in helpless agony, watching her family burn. Then they lifted her cage and threw her into the Inferno as well. Beside Jacob, a spectral figure appeared. It was Alan. I couldn't save them, Jacob, Alan whispered, tears in his eyes. I just watched. But the fire did not kill the queen. As the cage hits the flames, a shock wave of ice exploded outward. The fire turned to frost. The mob froze instantly. The ice spread, covering the entire planet, then the solar system, and then, finally, the galaxy. Then the planet shattered. The sphere, unharmed, shot out into space, disappearing into the void. But the cage remained. Find me. Jacob snapped back to reality at the edge of the Milky Way. The black hole was dragging him in. No! Jacob growled. He ignited his flames, using the propulsion to blast away from the event horizon. He followed the mental thread of the voice. He tore through the wormhole, emerging in a graveyard of a galaxy, a place of shattered planets and endless ice. He flew through the debris until he saw it, a single mountain torn from a planet, floating in the vacuum of space. On its peak sat the cage. Jacob landed softly. He walked towards the cage, his fiery form illuminating the frozen rock. Inside sat the entity, the queen, waiting in her eternal prison. She looked up, her blue eyes glowing from within her ears, tears leaking from beneath the red visor. You found me, she wept, her voice echoing in the mind. You finally found me, Jacob. Jacob. The woman's voice drifted from his cage, soft but persistent. I know your mind is drowning in questions. Jacob ignored her. He sat on the edge of the floating mountain, staring into the endless, suffocating darkness of space. The silence of the void was loud, but not as loud as the memories playing in his head. Alan's laugh, Alan's fear, Alan's scream. Hey, Jacob, she called again. He didn't move. He was numb. I failed, he thought. My only duty was to protect him. Slowly, the numbness turned into a cold, hard resolve. He stood up, wiping the magma tears from his face, and turned to the cage. I couldn't save my brother, Jacob said, his voice cracking but firm. But whoever you are, I will free you. He grabbed the metal bars of the cage. He summoned the fire, the magma surging through his veins. Flames erupted from his hands, wrapping around the metal. But the bars didn't melt. They didn't even glow red. It won't work, the woman whispered. Suddenly, the bright blue light in her eye sockets flared. She reached out through the bars and placed her pale hand over Jacob's burning fist. The contact changed everything. Jacob's roaring red-orange flames instantly turned a blinding, icy blue. The heat intensity spiked. The indestructible metal groaned and liquefied, dripping away like water. The cage shattered. Nexa stepped out. Shivering, she grabbed Jacob's hands, weeping. Thank you. Thank you. She looked up at him, her strange eyes filled with sorrow. I'm so sorry for what happened to you and your brother. You saw my story, but there is so much you do not know. Tell me. Jacob, my name is Nexa. She began wiping her face. And everything that has happened to my world, to your brother, to you, is because of the Aethel Void. The spear? Yes, the Aethel Void altered my biology, she explained, trembling. It gave me the power to see into the past. I tried to find its creation, to find a way to destroy it. I went back before the universe was even born. But I found nothing. It has no beginning. The dreams, Jacob realized. Me and Jacob, the visions we shared, that was you? Yes, I was trying to warn you. Jacob looked at his hands. When you touched me, you didn't burn. Why? Because we are immortal, Jacob. Jacob froze. Immortal? Anyone who touches the void becomes like it, Nexa said, her voice hollow. We cannot die. Even if this universe ends, we will remain. Jacob felt a pit open in his stomach. So, I will never see my brother again? In the afterlife? Nexa looked at him with the infinite pity. Jacob, stop thinking like a child. There are no gods. There is no afterlife. Jacob staggered back, denial washing over him. No, no. Look at me, Nexa cried. The void took my home, my husband, my child. It took everything I loved. And now, that death has reached your planet. We don't have time for grief. Jacob squeezed his eyes shut. Then he opened them. They burned with fire. I let my brother die. I won't let my family die. I won't let anyone else die. We have to go back. Nixa hesitated. It isn't just us, Jacob. There was another. I know, Jacob said. The three-headed fox. It touched the void too? Yes, Nixa nodded. But there was one more. One other human who touched it. Who?
Chapter 5 Hunter.
Nixa placed a hand on Jacob's shoulder. Darkness swallowed them, and when the light returned, they were standing in a bustling, rustic village, Grimwood. But from decades ago, a group of hunters stood in a circle. In the center, a burly man was beating a young boy. Please, the boy cried. You owe me gold coins, the man shouted, raising his fist. Since you can't pay, you are my slave now. Stop! A voice cut through the noise. A young man stepped forward. He was handsome, radiating charisma and strength. Why are you beating this child? The young man asked calmly. He owes me that. The young man didn't argue. He reached out into his pouch, pulled out a handful of gold coins, and tossed them to the brute. Here, the debt is paid. Leave him. The brute took away the money and scrabbled away. The young man offered a hand to the boy on the ground. Thank you, the boy said. Reflex. Thank you, Mr. Wolf. I can believe the famous hunter saved me. The young man chuckled. My real name isn't Wolf. It's... Hey, Wolf, you coming? His group called out, interrupting him. Jacob watched the scene, confused. Who are they? Nixa waved her hand, and the scene shifted. Now, Mr. Wolf and the boy were sitting in a green meadow, looking towards forest. They looked like close friends. What do you want from life, Mr. Wolf? The boy asked. Wolf leaned back, hands behind his head. Not much. I want to marry a beautiful girl, leave this village and settle down. And hunting? I'm done with it. Wolf smiled. I want to travel with my wife and kids. What about you? The boy's face fell. I just want to cure my mother. Once she is well, then I'll think about myself. Wolf looked at him with sympathy. He knew the mother's illness was fatal. You know, the boy suddenly said, my grandmother lived here. She was mute, couldn't speak a word. One day she chased a rabbit deep into the woods, into the prohibited snowy zone. Wolf sat up, and she found her rabbit, but it was wounded. She was crying over it. When she appeared, the three-headed golden fox. Jacob, watching the memory, stiffened. My grandmother touched the fox's head, the boy continued. The fox vanished, but the rabbit healed instantly. And my grandmother, she spoke. She got her voice back. That's a fairy tale. Wolf scoffed. It's not a fairy tale to me, the boy cried. It's my last hope. If there is a 1% chance that the fox exists, I have to take it. I can't watch my mother die. I've hunted these woods my whole life, Wolf said gently. I've never seen it. Because you never went to the ice fields? The boy countered. That place is forbidden, Wolf said sternly. If the elders find out, they will burn us alive. Going there brings a curse upon the village. Please, the boy grabbed Wolf's arm, tears streaming down his face. You are my only friend. You are the only one brave enough. I can't let my siblings become orphans. Please, great dragon wolf, help me. Wolf looked into the boy's desperate eyes. He sighed, the resolve crumbling. He couldn't say no. Okay. Wolf nodded. We go. The boy wept with relief and threw his arms around the hunter. Thank you. You are the bravest guy I know, Jacob. Jacob was stunned when he heard the name. Before he could utter a single word, Nexa spoke up. Jacob, I know what you're thinking, she said softly. That man, Mr. Robin Wood, is your grandfather. Jacob and Nexa watched as the boy stood outside his humble home. He knelt before his siblings, his older sister and his older brother, William. I will be back soon, the boy promised. Stay here with mother. His sister wept, begging him not to go. Sensing the ominous weight of the night, William, small and eager, tugged at his brother's sleeves. Take me with you. No, the boy said firmly. It is too dangerous. He turned and walked away with Mr. Darwin Wolf. As they trekked through the dense foliage, the boy stopped. He unclasped a chain from his neck, the same silver lion ring Jacob knew so well. I don't have much to give you, Mr. Wolf, the boy said earnestly, handing it to the hunter. But this ring represents bravery. It belongs to a brave man. Wolf took the ring, guilt flickering in his eyes, but he said nothing. They reached the edge of the prohibited ice ground. Suddenly, Wolf heard a rustling in the bushes behind him. His hunter's instinct took over. He signaled the boy to stay put, notched an arrow and crept forward. He aimed at the shaking bush, but to his sight, a golden shimmer appeared. Wolf froze. There, majestic and impossible, stood the three-headed golden fox. He couldn't believe his eyes. Trembling, he reached out and touched his head. In a flash of light, the fox vanished. Wolf gasped. Looking down at his hands, his two severed fingers had grown back. Now he was whole. Snap. The twig in the bush snapped again. Startled and running on adrenaline, Wolf spun around and loses the arrow blindly into the darkness. Bark! A small, choked gasp followed. Wolf parted the bushes. His blood ran cold. Lying there with the arrow into his stomach, was William. The little boy had followed them. Is everything okay, Wolf? The older boy called out from distance. Wolf panicked. He looked at the dead child. then at his regrown fingers. Fear overcome honor. He left the body where it was and scrambled back. Yes, yes, it's fine, Wolf stammered, sweating profusely. But I don't feel well. The darkness is too thick. We must leave. We can come back tomorrow. The boy, seeing the legendary hunters so shaken, agreed. They turned back, leaving the truth rotting into the bushes. The coward and the mob. By the time they reached the village, night had fallen completely. A wail of pure anguish echoed from the boy's house. He ran inside to find his sister sobbing over his mother's bed. She was dead. The sickness had taken her. The boy fell to his knees, his world shattering. I tried, sister, I tried. He wept. The hope of the cure was gone. Wolf stood in the doorway, terrified. He moved to comfort the boy, but the boy suddenly looked up. Where is William? The sister looked up through tear-swollen eyes. He isn't with you? He ran after you when you left. The boy's face went pale. I told him no. Rage overtook Greif. He stood up. I have to find him. Stop. Wolf blocked the door. You cannot go back there at night. It is suicide. I lost my mother, the boy screamed. I will not lose my brother too. You are insane, Wolf shouted. The boy grabbed Wolf's hands, begging him, please, Mr. Wolf, come with me. But as he held Wolf's hand, he froze. He looked down Wolf's hands. Wolf's fingers were back. The realization hit him like a physical blow. Wolf had found the fox. He had used the wish for himself. He had held his own hand while the boy's mother died. The boy dropped Wolf's hand, staring at him with a mix of horror and hatred. Before he could speak, shouting erupted outside. The village elders had discovered that they had entered the prohibited zone. A mob surrounded the house. You have cursed us! The elders screamed. You entered the forbidden lands! As the boy slipped out the back window to run to the forest, Mr. Wolf tried to calm them. They shoved Wolf back into the house and barred the doors. The villagers setting fire to the house, Jacob watched all of this cruelty in disgust. The clueless boy ran. He ran for hours into the black, freezing jungle, screaming William's name. Finally, he found him. He fell to his knees beside the small, cold body. He saw the arrow protruding into William's stomach. He recognized the fletching. It was Wolf's arrow. The betrayal was total. Mother dead, brother murdered by his mentor. The boy screamed, a sound of pure broken agony that ripped through the silence of the forest. Jacob and Nexa watched, tears streaming down his face, unable to interfere. Blinded by grief and madness, the boy picked up William's body and walked aimlessly. He wandered straight into the ice grounds. And there, pulsing in the snow, was the lethal void. The boy didn't care. He didn't care about curses. He reached out and grabbed the spear. His skin turned a sickly, hairless, pale white. His body contoured, ribs cracking and expanding, 6 massive arms burst from his torso, spreading wide in a symmetrical, unholy pose. His head dissolved, replaced by a smooth, hovering black spear. He was no longer a human. Humanity had died with his family. The entity flooded towards William's body. With 2 of its 6 arms, it picked up the corpse. Slowly, horrifyingly, it pressed the dead child into its own chest. The flesh fused. William's face emerged from the entity's chest. Frozen in the death, the arrow stuck in the stomach of the entity. Jacob watched, sickened to its core. Suddenly, the entity, the monster with the spear for a head, stopped moving. It slowly turned its featureless face away from the forest and looked directly at Jacob and Nexa. It broke the barrier of memory. I see you, Jacob. The voice was a distortion of 1,000 screams. Jacob gasped, tumbling back. The vision shattered. They were slammed back into the reality of space, standing on the floating rock. Jacob was shaking, his breath coming in short gasps. Who was that? Who was that boy? Nexa looked at him, her eyes filled with centuries of fear. She whispered, "That was Alexander." Chapter 6. Light. Jacob stood paralyzed by the revelation. Nexa, trembling, gripped his arm. "He is too dangerous, Jacob. I've tried to peer into his mind, but his powers blocks me. He is a master of illusions, a shapeshifter. And as we saw, he can submerge living things into his own body." He looked at Nexa with utter disgust. "All this death, just because of one man?" "We have to go," Jacob said, shaking off his shock. He grabbed Nexa's hand, summoning every ounce of his cosmic power. He launched them into the void. They tore through the fabric of space, moving at the speed of light, piercing the silence of the universe until they hit the wormhole. They shot through it, re-entering the Milky Way instantly. Nexa gasped, clutching Jacob's tight as she saw it. A massive, terrifying black hole looming near the solar system. It was her first time seeing the cosmic since her imprisonment. They entered the solar system, and Jacob's heart stopped. It was pitch black. As they approached Earth, the horror revealed itself. The entire planet was encased in crystal ice. The other planets were frozen rocks. The sun was dead, a cold, dark orb hanging in the sky. They landed softly on the surface of Earth. Beneath Jacob's foot lay a crow, frozen mid-craw in a block of crystal ice. All around them, life was suspended into a frozen grave. "We lost," Nexa whispered. "Hopeless. The aethal void has converted its energy into a white stasis. It is active. It could shatter its entire solar system at any moment." Jacob looked at the frozen world, then at Nexa. "We have to destroy the spear." "We cannot," Nexa cried. "You are powerful, Jacob, but we cannot destroy the parasite of existence." I cannot do it alone, Jacob said, reaching out his hands. But with your help, we can. Nexa looked at him, a flicker of hope returning to her eyes. She reached out to take his hand. You are a weak-like insect, Jacob. The demonic voice boomed from behind them. The vile truth. Jacob spun around. Emerging from the frozen tree line was Alexander, in his true six-armed monstrous form. I know what happened to you, Alex, Jacob said, trying to reason with him. We can fix this. A cruel laugh echoed from the pitch-black spear floating above Alexander's neck. Fix it? Go ahead then. Resurrect your dead brother. Alexander threw something at Jacob's foot. Do it. Bring him back. And if you do, put them back in this skull again. Jacob looked down. Lying in the snow were Alan's eyes. Trembling, Jacob picked them up. As soon as he touched his skin, they turned to ash. I enjoyed that. Alexander sneered. I enjoyed the sound of his screams when I plucked them out. Jacob looked at Nexa. In a flash of light, Jacob moved. He struck Alexander with the force of a falling star, sending the monster crashing miles away. Jacob didn't let up. He flew away after him, raining down blows of fire, but Alexander caught Jacob's fist effortlessly. He grabbed Jacob by the throat and lifted him into the air. Do you know what I did, Jacob? Alexander whispered, his voice dripping with malice. When my brother died, I went back to my village to give me my mother a burial. But they had burned my home, so I killed them, all of them, men, women, children, even the animals and insects. It felt good. It felt good. He tightened his grip. Then I found your coward grandfather. He was living happily with my sister. Every time I saw him touch her, I felt disgusted. I hated him. But I hated her more. That treacherous bitch. I waited. Alexander continued. I waited until your sister, Rose, was born. She wasn't naturally weak. Jacob. She wasn't naturally weak, Jacob. I poisoned her. I kept her sick for years. I haunted her dream by day and night. She never woke up because I was showing her the death of your family over and over again. Jacob screamed, unleashing a massive explosion of fire that incinerated half the forest. But when the smoke cleared, Alexander stood there without a scratch. Ah, weak blood. Alexander mocked him. He vanished into black hole. Suddenly, an illusion of Jacob's mother appeared from the mist. Mother? Jacob hesitated. The illusion struck him, knocking him to the ground. Before Jacob could recover, Alexander re-emerged, placing his hand on Jacob's chest, beginning to submerge him into his body. And the best part? Alexander leaned close, his featureless face terrifyingly close. Your father didn't die in a haunting accident. I killed him. Jacob froze. I killed him months before you know. I took his form. I lived in your house. I played with you and Henry at that night. Alexander laughed. A sound like grinding bones. I slept with your mother for months. I used to pound that whore over and over, and she enjoyed every filthy second of it. You should have seen her face when she was craving to be fucked. Her screams drove me wild. I loved hearing her beg and cry out while I fucked her. But when that boy Alan was born, my blood was in him. After that, she wasn't the same. She started to stink. And I couldn't stand being near that slut anymore. Jacob halted his assault, stopping his punches mid-air. He looked down at the monster and spoke softly. That's the difference between you and me, Alex. Jacob lowered his guard. I still grieve for what happened to you. And I know that fighting you won't fix the past. But I have never had an enemy. And you are not my enemy either. You are just a broken little boy. Alexander froze, stunned into silence by the words. Jacob extended his hands towards him. You may not know the value of life, but I do. Stand up. Help me fix this. That moment, Jacob saw the three-headed fox appear beside him. The creature dissolved into millions of tiny shimmering particles of rust into Jacob's body. Jacob's flames transformed into blinding bright yellow flames. He was shining with the intensity of a living star. Alexander's shock twisted into pure, unadulterated rage. He rejected the mercy with a roar. He lunged at Jacob with terrifying speed to kill him. Jacob watched him come, sadness in his eyes. I'm sorry, Alexander, he whispered. Before Alexander could land a single hit, Jacob drove his fist forward. He punched straight through the center of the pitch black sphere head. Bam! Alexander's body collapsed to the ground, instantly crumbling into ash. His spherical head disintegrated into Jacob's hand, slipping through his fingers like grey dust. Jacob stood alone in the silence, heavy with sorrow for taking the life he had tried to save. The earth began to quake. The death of Alexander had destabilized the aethel void completely. Jacob flew to Nexa, who lay unconscious. He then woke her up. We aren't done. He tried to destroy the void with his new power, but it wouldn't break. The world was ending. Nexa placed a hand on his shoulder. Stop, Jacob. She hugged him, tears streaming down her face. She touched his cheek, showing him a final vision of gratitude. Then she picked up the aethel void. Jacob watched, stunned as Nexa began to float. I didn't know you could fly, he said. She smiled, a sad, beautiful smile. Goodbye, Jacob. And just like that, she took flight, speeding away from Earth and leaving the solar system far behind. Tears streamed down her face. She knew exactly what she had to do. The memory of Jacob washed over her, making her weep even harder. Accelerating with the aether void, she plunged straight into the black hole, into the crashing silences of the space. She whispered slowly, "In another life, Jacob." And then she vanished forever into infinite darkness. Jacob stood alone under the dark sky. A small void opened in his heart. He flew back into his village. He flew back into his village. He walked into his silent, frozen home. He found Henry, frozen in a protective stance. Jacob smiled, touched his shoulder. "Proud of you, brother." He went to Rose's room. She was frozen in bed. He stroked her frozen hair. "You are the bravest sister." Finally, he found his mother. She was frozen by the window, clutching Jacob's old clothes, looking out with a face full of hope. Jacob collapsed. He hugged his frozen mother and wept like a child. "I couldn't save him, Mother," he sobbed. I couldn't save Alan." He cried until there are no tears left. Then he stood up. He walked out of the house. He looked at the back. He looked at the black, dead sun. He looked back at his home one last time. Goodbye. Jacob launched himself into the sky. He broke the atmosphere, a streak of golden light. In the darkness, he flew straight toward the dead star. He didn't slow down. He dove into the core of the sun. Ignition. Jacob sat in the center of the star and released everything. His body became the fuel. The sun roared to life. Light flooded the solar system. The ice on Earth shattered and melted. The rivers flowed. The birds sang. Sunlight hit his mother's face. She gasped, waking up. She ran outside looking for her son, but the street was empty. She fell to her knees, weeping. "Mother?" It was Rose. She was standing at the door, fully healed. The sickness all gone. Henry ran out and grabbed them both. The three of them hugged, crying tears of relief and sorrow. Slowly, they all looked up at the sky, at the warm, bright sun that was watching over them. Deep inside the core, surrounded by eternal flame, Jacob sat with his eyes closed. Slowly, he opened them. The end.
भाई मैं खत्म हो गया ना, द एंड। मतलब वर्ड्स नहीं है मेरे पास। ईसोस भाई
Yes.
कहना चाहते हो?
जो कहना चाहता हूँ वो स्क्रीन पे है।
भाई ये तो मतलब
जो कहना चाहता हूँ भाई वो स्क्रीन पे है।
टाइटल बहुत जस्टिफाई कर दिया मतलब। फक
यार मेरे को भेजना है, मेरे को मैं पढ़ूंगा, आराम से पढ़ूंगा मैं ये।
तो अभी फिर हम
मैं-
स्पॉइलर डिस्कस करेंगे तो मत सुनो।
हाँ
स्ट्रीम बंद कर दो या
मैं
फिर
वही
चल
कह
रहा
रहा हूँ कि मतलब यार
बंद कर रहा हूँ स्ट्रीम।
कर दो।
स्ट्रीम बंद कर दो विदित।
एक तो ये जो इतने क्रेजी राइटिंग के साथ जो क्रेजी नरेशन था ना, वॉइस मॉड्यूलेशन जो हुआ था भाई,
वो इसी के साथ ये एपिक स्टोरी का खात्मा होता है।
हाइप वाज वर्थ इट भाई, हाइप वाज
थैंक
वर्थ
यू
इट कर
रोहित
दी
भाई,
भाई।
थैंक यू जीसोस भाई, वी शुड ऑल थैंक देम। और के साथ
आई लव यू
मिलते हैं अगली
पुर्तगाली।
स्ट्रीम में। और कल
आई लव यू पुर्तगाली
ऑडियंस
भाई।
अवार्ड्स है, तो आ जाना
एक
शार्प 7
एक्स्ट्रा अवार्ड
PM।
पुर्तगाली के लिए रखना भाई, एक
एक
एक्स्ट्रा
हाँ, एक
अवार्ड
अवार्ड
एक्स्ट्रा
पुर्तगाली
अवार्ड
के लिए
पुर्तगाली
ब्रो।
के लिए भी जाएगा। इसी के
यस
साथ मिलते हैं।
100% जाएगा भाई।
सी यू ऑल,
शब्द नहीं है भाई
बाय
बोलने
बाय,
के लिए भाई।
कल मिलते हैं
एंड
आपसे।
एब्सोल्यूट सिनेमा।